It is just past 8 in the morning on the 6th of December, 1917, in the harbour at Halifax, Nova Scotia. A harbour pilot named Francis Mackey stands on the deck of a French cargo ship, watching another vessel come straight toward him. This is the story of the Halifax Explosion. The French ship is the Mont-Blanc. It is old, slow, and riding low in the water, because it is carrying almost 3,000 tons of explosives. In its hold are TNT, gun cotton, and barrels of picric acid, a chemical used to make artillery shells. On its deck, lashed in the open air, are drums of benzol, a high-octane fuel. The First World War is in its 4th year. The Mont-Blanc has crossed the Atlantic to join a convoy bound for France. It is, in effect, a floating bomb, and almost no one in Halifax knows it is there. The harbour at Halifax is one of the busiest in the world that winter. The Narrows, the thin channel connecting the outer harbour to the basin beyond, is the only way through. On the morning of the 6th, 2 ships are using it at once. The Mont-Blanc is coming in. A Norwegian relief ship, the Immo, is heading out, running late and moving fast. They are on a collision course. Both captains see it. Both blow their whistles to signal which way they will turn. The signals contradict each other. The Immo is on the wrong side of the channel. Each ship waits for the other to give way. Neither does. At the last moment both try to turn, and the turns bring them together. The collision itself is almost gentle. The Immo's bow grinds into the Mont-Blanc's side and opens a shallow gash. On most ships this would mean paperwork and a delay. But the impact knocks over the benzol drums on the deck. Fuel spills across the steel. A spark from the scraping hulls finds it. The Mont-Blanc is on fire. The crew knows exactly what is in the hold. They know there is no putting the fire out. The captain gives the order to abandon ship. 40 men climb into 2 lifeboats and row hard for the Dartmouth shore, shouting warnings as they go. But they are shouting in French, to a crowd that speaks English, about a danger no one can see. The men reach the trees on the far bank and keep running. The Mont-Blanc, now burning and unmanned, drifts. The tide carries it slowly across the Narrows until it comes to rest against Pier 6, on the Halifax waterfront, and sets the wooden pier alight. A burning ship is a spectacle. People come to watch. Office workers step to their windows. Children on their way to school stop on the hillside. Crews from other vessels gather on deck for a better view. The fire burns for around 20 minutes, bright and strange, drawing more eyes every minute. The whole north end of the city is now looking directly at the Mont-Blanc. At 9:04 and 35 seconds in the morning, it explodes. The Mont-Blanc is torn apart in a fraction of a second. The blast releases energy equal to roughly 3 kilotons of TNT. It is the largest explosion human beings have ever produced, and it will hold that record until the first atomic bomb, 20 years later. A fireball climbs over the harbor. A column of black smoke rises more than 3 kilometers into the sky. The ship itself becomes shrapnel. The Mont-Blanc's anchor shaft, a piece of iron weighing half a ton, is thrown almost 4 kilometers and lands in a wooded area on the other side of the city. The barrel of one of its guns lands near a lake in Dartmouth, more than 5 kilometers away. Both pieces are still where they fell. You can visit them today. On the ground, the destruction follows a simple rule of distance. Everything within about 2 kilometers of Pier 6 is flattened. The north end of Halifax, a dense neighborhood of homes, factories, and schools, ceases to exist as a neighborhood. The blast displaces the water in the harbor itself, and a wave rises behind it, in places as high as 18 meters. The wave climbs the shore and pulls people and wreckage back out with it. A small Mi'kmaq community at Tufts Cove, on the Dartmouth side, is destroyed almost entirely by the water. Around 1,600 people are killed in the first instant. By the time the count is done it will reach roughly 2,000. 9,000 more are injured. 6,000 are left without homes. And then there is the particular cruelty of the windows. For 20 minutes, the city had watched the fire through glass. When the Mont-Blanc exploded, the pressure wave turned every one of those windows into a sheet of flying fragments, aimed inward, at the faces pressed close to sea. The result is an epidemic of eye injuries with no precedent. Around 6,000 people suffer wounds to their eyes. Roughly 600 lose the sight of one or both eyes permanently. The disaster will, grimly, advance the medical care of the blind for years afterward, because Halifax suddenly has so many newly blind people to care for. In the railway yards beside the harbour, a man named Vince Coleman is working as a train dispatcher. A sailor runs through the yard shouting that the burning ship is loaded with explosives. Coleman and a colleague start to leave. Then Coleman remembers something. A passenger train is inbound from St. John, carrying about 300 people, due to arrive at the waterfront within minutes. He goes back to his desk. He sends a telegraph message up the line, telling the incoming train to stop. The wording that survives is brief, and it ends with a man's clear understanding of his own situation. "Hold up the train," the message says, and then, "goodbye." Vince Coleman is killed at his post. The train receives the message and stops outside the city. The morning of the 6th had been clear and mild. The next day, a blizzard arrives. 16 inches of snow fall on a city with no windows, no power, and thousands of people trapped in collapsed houses. Rescuers dig through rubble in the storm. Some who survived the explosion do not survive the night. Help comes from an unexpected distance. In Boston, more than 1,000 kilometers south, the state of Massachusetts hears of the disaster and does not wait to be asked. Within hours, a train is loaded with doctors, nurses, and supplies and sent north through the snow. It is the first organized relief to reach the city from outside. Bostonians keep sending money and material for weeks. In the months that follow, Halifax wants to know whose fault it was. An inquiry is held. It blames the Mont-Blanc and its pilot, Francis Mackey, the man standing on the deck at the start of this story. He is arrested. So is the captain. But as the evidence is examined more carefully, the picture comes apart. The IMO was out of position. The signals were misread on both sides. The harbor was overcrowded and the rules were loosely kept. The charges against Mackey are eventually dropped. A higher court rules that both ships share the blame. No single person is ever held responsible for the largest explosion in human history to that point. Halifax rebuilt. The north end filled again with houses and streets. The harbor went back to work. A century passed. But the city never quite closed the account with Boston. Every December, in the forests of Nova Scotia, foresters select a single tree. It is cut, loaded, and driven south to the city of Boston, where it is raised and lit as that city's official Christmas tree. It has happened year after year, decade after decade, a gift sent for help given during a catastrophe that almost no one now alive can remember. The fire was put out long ago. The thank you was not.